Hey guys, Daniel James here, and today what we're going to be doing is taking a look at Komplete 9. So for those of you who know what Komplete 9 is, you know that there's way too much stuff for me to talk about in one video. So what I'm going to be doing today is just focusing in on the instruments that got me most excited about the update and that are new to Komplete 9. So that's in this video we'll be looking at Battery 4, which is loaded up in front of me here, Monark, which is the new Mini-Moog type emulation simulator type thing, and I'll also take a look at the Giant, which is the giant piano they sampled, and if I remember, we'll take a little look at the solid state emulations of the EQ and the compressor. So the way we're going to do this is the same way I do all my videos. Is I've written a short track in the background that's used parts of these instruments as a way for me to demonstrate how they're used in context of a track. So let's take a listen to that. If you hear any clicks and pops, again, it's not the library. It's just because recording and playing back big projects at the same time uses a lot of CPU, so it starts to click and pop. So just ignore that. So here we go. So that was the short track I wrote, and as a lot of you who know a lot about sample libraries will note that not a lot of those, well, not a lot, not all of those sounds in there were from Komplete 9. A lot of them were using third-party libraries, such as I'll just take a look at my brass section, for example, because I use a lot of different instruments. So we got Cinebrass, Symphobia, and some Albion in there, and the reason I felt okay using these is the big point I want to make straight off the bat for those who are thinking about, buying Komplete 9 is you do get Kontakt 5, which in my opinion is the most important thing as a MIDI-based composer you can get at the minute, because any sample libraries you're going to get, any of the good ones anyway, are going to be powered by Kontakt. So you'll need Kontakt 5 to run a lot of them. Sometimes you get the libraries which run in the free player, which a lot of those did. But yeah, Kontakt 5 is definitely worth getting. So I thought I'd mention that straight away. So let's jump in with Battery 4. So for anyone who's had who's bought a Komplete before, you'll know that batteries always come with it, and it normally ends up, for a lot of people, it ends up like in the back burner. Not many people use it too well, and I am very guilty of this. There was something about Battery 3, maybe it was just the way the aesthetic of the green user interface, which didn't gel with me so well. But let's start here. So this is what Battery 4 looks like. As you can see, they've changed the actual look of it. It's now it's very sexy. If an instrument can be sexy, it's a sexy looking instrument. You know, the blacks and the greys with the hints of colors coming from the different slices. It looks good now. So let's jump in. So what is Battery? Battery is basically a drum sampler. So you get these things, these little squares here, which are called cells. And in these cells, you can go into your computer and drag in any WAV file. It can be a long one. It could be a short one. I'd recommend short ones because it's designed for drums. But basically, it's a perfect place for you to host all the one-shot sounds you make, and be able to play them back. As I only got this like a week ago, I haven't yet created any big Battery presets with all my sounds in or anything. But what I intend to do is take, like, for example, all my favorite one-shot booms, like the really low boom, from all the different libraries. I'm just going to bounce off like a single hit of each of my favorite ones, and then I'll load them into here. And a lot of you would ask, why would you bother? And so the main reason you would bother loading, going to the effort to export sounds from, something like from a contact instrument or something. The reason you'd want to do that is because all the parameters in Battery are designed for drums. So they're designed for percussion. So if you've got anything percussion based, all the tools to tweak it, to make it a better drum sound are right in front of you. And I'll go over what they are now. So I'll just solo out Battery here. So as you can see, I loaded in 3 sounds. I thought I'd just, show you the different things. So we'll start with this one. So this started off as a snare type sound. Let me just turn off all the things that I added to it. Need to remember what they were. And turn down the delay. So this is what it sounded like. That's what the sound sounded like originally. It's a really snappy snare type sound. But what I wanted to do was create like a little sound designy type. So it maintains that snare type sound, but at the same time, I wanted it to be a little bit interesting, to add like a little undercurrent of rhythm into the track. So let me turn these back on. I'll tell you what they all do in a minute. Filter, compressor, and add delay, like 2 o'clock-ish. So that's basically what the sound did. It's not that much different, but it's it's got a little kind of rhythmic interest to it. So if I just play that in the track, let's find a place where it actually is. So that's what it's doing, and in the track, the context is this. So it's these little dots here. It's a very subtle kind of thing, but it adds like a bit of interest to that section. If I play that section without these in, you'll hear that there's kind of a gap in the music. There's like a space. Because the percussion drops out and the brass drop out. And that was it. That was intentional so that I could do something like this. I'll just play that again without it. As you can hear, the percussion, the brass stop. And so what I did is I decided to make something with a little bit of interest so that it would fill that little gap. Only subtly, not up in your face, just subtle. It's almost like a ticking clock, but in a weird kind of way. So let me show you what the features of the front panel are. So this is when you load an instrument in, which you do by literally just going to your file browser and then dragging a WAV file from the browser into this, drop it in, and it'll load. You can, I don't think it was called Snap Snare, Snap Snare, say that lots of times. I just right clicked and renamed it so I knew what it was. And then, so this is the front panel you get. So, you've got features like tune. Oh, by the way, I should probably mention this. This is like the way it's set up on the keyboard. so like a MIDI keyboard, is these will always be the C, and these are octaves. So A is C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B. And then it will go an octave up. So if I've had a few people confused about this, saying where do all the cells go? Some you can rearrange where they are, what MIDI note they correspond to. But the best way to look at it is as a MIDI keyboard. So this is one octave on a MIDI keyboard, and then this is the second octave up. So I'm playing this on C1, as you can see down here. If I put it there, it's now on C. Let's show you this. It's now going to be on C2. So let me just. So all your features are on the when you load a WAV file in. These are the features you got. So you got your tune knob. As you can tell, just by moving the tune knob, you can create some interesting sounds. You've got a reverse button. And you can slide where you want that. So cool sounds there. Pan, you can imagine what that does. This is invert phase. So you wouldn't really notice a difference, but if you know about phase shifting and all that, that's basically it inverts the phase. This switches the left to right. So I'm stuttering. Sorry, I'm so excited. So the volume envelope. This is the same as on any old synth. By default, it normally clicks to this one here. You can change between an AHDSR or just an AHD. And it gives you a nice visual representation when you move the things up here. So attack is how fast it takes the note to attack. So let me just turn the reverse off. So the higher I go this, the longer it'll take to. That kind of gives you like a reverb type sound. I always find that when you pull the reverb back, the attack back, it makes it sound like wider, almost like a stadium of people. Like a stadium ensemble. And normally when you're doing percussion, you have it just a little bit off, because a lot of percussion, for some reason, like when they're sliced, well, it's very often, particularly if you've sliced, like say you've taken a percussion loop, and you've sliced it up yourself and loaded it in, so you could load it into battery, so you can, play the lines back. A lot of the slices won't be on a 0 point, which means when you hit the note, it'll click. You'll hear a very dirty and horrible digital click. And if you just move the attack just a little bit up, you audibly, you can't really hear the difference between 1 millisecond. But if there was a click at the start of that, you'd have noticed. So hold is it'll hold it before it gets to the decay, and a decay is how long it takes to get from the attack, excluding a hold, to the sustain. So as you can see, I got the sustain on a 0. So imagine this was like a synth note that went boom like that forever. I should probably try and find something like that. Give me a second. Let me find a synth sample. I'm going as quick as I can. I'm sorry. Synth sustains. Okay, let me just drag in a fludge. So I'm going to drag in a. There you go. So. Best way to show this. So if I turn the volume envelope on and then put it on the ADSR, it's much easier for me to show. So decay sustain. So let's just by putting the ADSR, it doesn't play the whole way through. So if I turn the release off, we'll keep a little bit of release. So if the sustain's down at 0, the decay now controls how long it takes from the attack. Let me get that thing. I can't hover over the thing and show you. But if you look at the peak, which is up here where the S is there, the decay is how long it takes the sound to go from that peak to the sustain amount, which at the minute is 0. So if I move the sustain amount, it's how long that peak takes to get to minus 23 decibels. So if you're making percussion, you want it to go down, otherwise it'll do this. And it will just play forever at that minus 28. But if it's 0, even though I'm holding the key, it's gone all the way down. So percussion, you want to be short. You know. So the hold is how long... Okay, it gets a little bit confusing, but stay with me. So attack is from when I hold the key, how long it'll take to get from nothing up to that peak up there, which is around here. And then once it hits that peak, it'll move to the decay setting, which determines how long it takes for the sound at that top peak to get to this amount, which at the minute is 0. Okay, and hold basically adds in a little amount of time, as you can imagine, how long it holds the sound before the decay starts. So now, this is what it sounds like with that setting. If I put the hold up to 40 milliseconds, okay, I'll put it up to something more noticeable. So it'll hold for 1.9 milliseconds, and then it'll hit the decay, and then it'll take 3.36 seconds to go to 0. This is like Synth 101. But okay, so here we got a sound. So that's obviously one of the important parts. And the next thing you've got down below is a pitch envelope. And now this is, if you've ever tried making percussion, this is probably the most important part, because this basically adds like the click to it. So if I turn the pitch envelope on, you can hear how already it sounds a bit more percussive. And what it does basically is it makes the sound, it pitches it from a very high, so maybe 2 octaves up, and then within the space of like it says here, in 68 milliseconds, it's taking it from 2 octaves up to, to its normal level, to where the sound is. And when you do that, you introduce a click, which is what happens acoustically in real life. It's not pitching things up, but if you imagine a drum, when the beater hits the head, it's basically forcing the drum in, which makes it all tight, and then it releases. So if we turn this decay down, it's going to get more clicky. We turn it up, and we turn the amount up. Now if I turn this, the tune of it down, so already from this one sustain, we've made a like a clicky type. So next up on the line is velocity, and this basically says when you push the key, what do you want it to control? So if I turn the volume down, that basically means even if I push the key soft, it'll play as hard as it can. If it's at 100%, that means if I play soft, and then if I progressively get harder, it gets, hard. Well, loud. That's what to volume. And if you have it to pitch, so if I push really hard, it's going to go to 12 semitones up. It's going to go an octave up. I haven't yet found a use personally for that, but it's there if you need it. So then the engine. This basically is what the sample does, how it's loaded in. So they have different algorithms for how a sound is handled. So this is Time Stretch Pro. The sampler is normally my favorite one, because even when you pitch it down, it just it just the length of it so that it fits and stuff. Vintage, this is where you can load in like some old MP60 type, MPC 60 it would be, but I guess they can't license the name. Just the way that that machine would sound when you loaded a sound into it. So then the filter. So if you've got a sound, this one's got a lot of low end. Maybe I wanted to turn it into a hi-hat. Let's have it quite middly, almost like the compressor. So this, I think, is the I think it's I can't tell you for sure, but I think that the actual compressor being used here is one of the SSL emulation type ones, which is what they've released. As you can see up here, the bus compressor. I don't think it's the bus compressor, but it's just one dial. You know, it makes it more compressed. Particularly on loud ones, that makes a big difference. So I'll just turn that off. So the delays, one thing that kind of irked me about this is you can only have one delay setting. I'll show you where that is now. So if you look at the bottom here, each cell has its own settings. As you can see, these all change when I change the instrument. The same is said. They all have different effects. They all have different modulations. They all have different setups, and they all have different editors. The editor is, I probably won't go into much detail today because there's a lot of different things you can do. It's like trying to explain all of Contact in one video. So they've all got their own setup. They've all got their own editor, and the master, as you can imagine, covers everything. So these settings will be applied to everything. But in the master is where the reverb and the delays are. So you can only have one reverb and delay for each instrument, which personally for me, I wish that each one you would be able to set its delay and reverb, but you know, they're the bosses. And one thing you can do is, I haven't done it in this track, but I'll just show you this quick, is if, say, for example, you wanted, let me just load in another audio track here, and I'll have this as battery 4. So I've made so the audio is coming in from battery 4, and you see that when I make a new audio track and point the input to battery, I've got lots of different settings. So you see there 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, blah blah. So if I set this one to 3, 4, and then change this, if I right click it and go down to output, I can actually change its direct out to 3 and 4. 1 and 2 is the master. Direct out to 3 and 4. So now, you know, you can't hear that because the output is going to 3 and 4. So I think I need to maybe, yeah. So if you could do it by monitoring or by clicking on the record button, which in Ableton Live, when you're recording something, it automatically monitors it. So now you can see that the audio here is coming out of 3 and 4. So I could come in here and I could put on like a ping pong delay. But that delay will not cover these sounds. So just by rerouting the output, which is a very useful thing to have if you've got buses. So say you could set up a preset where all your low instruments go to 1 and 2, all your hi-hats go to 3 and 4, all your sound effect type things go to 4 and 5, 5 and 6. You know, and you could do things like this, which is really cool. It's a really cool feature to have. I'll just make that go back to the master. So as you can see now, it's coming. If you look here, so 1 and 2, I'll just change it again so you can see what it's doing, and then 3 and 4. It's now coming out of that one with the effects on it. So if you wanted to do that, there's your workaround. So anyway, where was I? I want that to go back to master. So delay. So you change your delay settings up here. You could turn the sync off and do it in hertz if that's your thing. You could set it to 16ths. I've got mine set at the minute to 16th notes. So, and you've got your return faders here. The cool thing about the reverb is if you look up here, you can change it between algorithmic, which is here, and the convolution, and you can drag in your own convolutions, which is kind of awesome. So let me just I'm just off screen for a second here. Let me pull in I'm going to pull in a random sound. Pain hit. That sounds interesting. Just drag that onto there. So you see it's loaded that in. So now if I come onto my my reverb, it's now using, I mean, that sound wasn't set up for, isn't really, it's not a good reverb wave file to use. But if you've got your own convolution reverbs, you can buy packs of wave files which are recorded real sounds. You just drag them in there and you can use them in battery, which is awesome. Algorithmic uses less, but I'm going to turn that off, I think. It didn't matter. Anyway, so back on the main page. So that's all the front things on there. So then we move into the effects. So you get saturation, lo-fi, filter or EQ. You don't get both. So if you want to filter something, I'd recommend doing it here. That way you can reserve this for an EQ. Say you've got like a resonant frequency you want to cut out. So saturation, lo-fi, compressor, and this is where you can, this compressor here is all well and good. But if you want to be a little bit more pedantic about it, you want to be a little bit more up in there, you can come in there and you can use this compressor. You can change it between the solid state or the solid. It's called the solid bus, but it's an emulation, or it's definitely inspired by the solid state compressors. And you've got classic, pro, and these are all the ones. The cool thing about Battery 4 that I actually like is they've integrated the effects, the new effects that they've put into Contact, which is definitely welcome from me. And then this is, I believe, the Time Machine Pro. I'm not sure. Let me try. No. It's the Transient Master. So this is, again, talking about the Contact things. This, so the attack is how much attack you want on the sound and sustain. So if you want to make it short and snappy, you turn the attack all the way up and the sustain all the way down. Or if you want to take the attack out and put just sustain. Cool way for making things more punchy. I'll do it on this one. If I turn the time machine on. So if I play the key, turn it off. You can hear how that changes the sound. So back on my little flangey sound. So another cool thing that a lot of people seem to miss is that you can, I'm not sure if you could do this in Battery 3, but you can now change the order. So if you want it to go through the lo-fi, or you want to put all your effects, let's say, I'll show you why this is important. So let's say you've got a lo-fi sound like this. Let me put the filter in front of the lo-fi for now. Let me put a low pass filter on. You can hear how you've got those high harmonics over the top of the filter, and if the filter's after the lo-fi, you cut those high harmonics out, because the sound is being affected by lo-fi, which is introducing those higher harmonics to the sound, and then when you put the filter over it, it's cutting them out. Whereas if it's the other way around, you're shaping the sound with the filter first, and then the lo-fi is adding the the harmonics to it. So that's kind of cool. Saturation is, it's saturation. It's almost like an overdrivey distortion type thing. And then there's the compressor. I'll show you more about the compressor because it's the same setup as the standalone ones. Okay, so that's basically how you make a sound. The modulation, this is where you can apply things like LFOs, and you can apply it to any of the effects. So maybe you want to change the maybe you've got a sustained sound. Now this wasn't working for me earlier, but let me just make this just. So now we got a sustained sound, modulation, LFO 1, 2, the filter cut off. I mean, you could use this for some fun things. So let me put the like 30-second. You know, if you wanted to add like a wobble. Normally I would have it as a down, but they don't. They don't have saw down. Oh, there we go. This is my favorite saw down because it's the snappy. And so that's on this filter. So if I change this to like a band pass. Or is it doing it to this one? I don't know. Put it back to low pass. So this is on the formant filter. So I believe that this is actually a different, I believe it's on this. So now I'm kind of getting into dubstep type territory. Again, these are just things you could do. Personally, I wouldn't do these things. So that's the modulation page. You've got a modulation envelope. So if you wanted to, you know, if I change this to the modulation envelope, now the formant, so this dial here right now is being controlled by this. So it should go up and then back down. So there you see, you can shape your own little modulations and stuff, which is cool. You get 4 of those per slice, I believe. So, you know, if you really want to get crazy with it, you can, which is cool. And whistle them, which is cool. So this is let me turn this back to what it was. Turn the modulation off, and then so setup. You can change the velocity. So this is the MIDI input. So even if I hit hard, you know, most of you will know what a velocity curve is, but if you don't, it's it basically controls the key that you push. So if the graph looks like this, it's gonna, you know, I have to push hard to make it go hard. If I push like a medium, it's going to be pushed down and be quite low. So I'll just push medium. Whereas if the curve's the opposite, pushing medium will be loud. And if I want it to be soft, I have to push very soft. So that's cool. Not really sure what that does. You know, oh well. I should probably learn these things before. So cell activation, note on, note off. So I guess that means when I take the note off, it'll trigger. Yeah, so I push the key down, and then I'm still holding it, and if I let go of it now, does that. Why you would want that, I'm not sure. You can do round robin, but I haven't yet figured out how to work the round robin. I believe it's all in the editor, but I need to dive into that a bit more, and again, that would take a long time. So the articulation, this is cool if you want to have like, so if I was to duplicate this, which I think I can do by, yeah, which I can do by Alt. If I hold Alt and then drag the delete that one. Yes, I want to delete that cell. Move that back. If you hold Alt and then drag a sound like this, it will duplicate all the settings of that cell. And then if I put like this articulation thing is cool. So say you want like one to be like you hit the key and it just hits. But then you wanted, you know, like a 3-stroke rough. You turn on the articulations, and when I hit this key here, so that way I can throw in like kind of natural-ish sounding. Let me turn this back. So it's a cool little thing. You can change the speed and the dynamics of it there. Dynamics. And they've got a few different ones. So a roll. So now if I hold that, it'll be a roll. I'll set these back to 0 so they're the same. So you, buzz. You've got to imagine these are designed for drums, so they sound a bit crazy on some of these. And this is the muted ones are good for if you're doing ghost notes. I can't play drum beats very well with my hands. So that's cool if you want. That was a terrible example. I apologize. I can only apologize for that. Yeah, speed roll. Horrible sound. Random Geiger counter, you know, because they can. Alternate stroke, release stroke. So I'll hold, when I push the key down, it'll make a note, and then when I take it off, it'll play what a right hand would sound like. A flam, a drag, which is right, right, left, and then back to 3-stroke rough. And they're all cool. And then you've also got this humanize. And what humanize does is, I'll show you this on this drum in a little bit. What it does is it introduces, in fact I can show you that now. So if I play the track, I've got this sound here, which you can see in the background, by the way, is I actually just dragged in a drum loop, drum 7, 90 beats per minute, and I found a sound in it. Oh, wrong one. And it wasn't a particularly important part of the sound, it was just, I thought that sounded, you know, it had a nice clicky sound to it. So I got it so that it sounded, so that it would, you know, when I pushed the key, it would sound the note straight away. So there was no gaps or anything. I got the start and the end points just right, you know, and I changed my little settings. It doesn't really do anything, the compressor there. You know, put a bit of delay on it, turn the delay off. It's just a single slice, but now it's, so if I was to play, and what I wanted to do in the track, remember the track? What I wanted to do was basically double the rhythm, the main rhythm that was going on. So if you look down in my MIDI information here, it's this line here, and as you can see, it just goes da. Which is basically doubling the cello rhythm at the top. And again, this sounds very subtle, and people are probably like, why did you even bother? But it's things like this which add to an overall kind of polished sound. Like the big sound isn't just it's not just broad strokes, it's made up of lots of little, you know, if you imagine it like a painting. When you see like one of those awesome portraits of someone, when you look at the portrait, you just see the picture, you know, you just see this well painted picture of a person. But what you don't see is the very subtle but fine little, you know, it could even be 1 or 2 strokes that, you know, would only be a few millimeters wide by a certain color, which adds a complete different dimension to the you know, to the lighting of the painting, for example. It's just subtle things like this which add to the overall polished look of a sound. So adding things like this, as you can hear, it's got quite a thuddy kind of it's both clicky and thuddy at the same time. If I put it with you could probably hear, well, I can hear it in headphones, but you could probably hear how that doubles with the lines quite nicely. And again, just the subtle touches that add to the polished sound. It's quite a mantra to live by. So yeah, anyway, so if I take a listen to this sound in isolation again now, and come up to the setup, and then whack on this humanize button, what it does is it essentially adjusts each MIDI information, each MIDI note, each MIDI slice. When it, oh god, it's all going bandy. Right, so like here we go. So each one of these will now be adjusted almost at random by these parameters. So if I turn this on, and what it's doing is it's essentially changing the sound and the time of it. So the more I put it up, the timing will just go off. So it sounds like it's being played by some drunk child. Drunk child? Is that allowed? A party with a meal, it's fine. You can hear now how this... Just solo this. Oh, by the way, these little buttons here, the left one is solo, the right one's mute. You can hear how that's completely out of time. It's so human now. So if I bring the time all the way down to, if I put it to, yeah, if I bring it to minus 100%, I think now it's perfectly in time. But the sound is the sound, I think, is subtly adjusting the velocity. So if you've got lots of notes that are playing at the exact same velocity, particularly if you program them in, like say for example, I wanted to. Let me just take these ones out. If I was to bring these in, and these are all at the same length, let me turn off the humanize here. The sound, by having the humanize on the sound, it will adjust each of these to be random. So you get less of that machine gun effect. Now you wouldn't want it like that, perhaps. If you have it 100%, it goes between like nothing and 100, so you don't want that. So you want it like roughly around there. And that just adds a little bit of variation, which is intrinsically human. That's basically what humans do. They're not perfect. They can't play this. They can't play the exact same bit of information over and over identically. So if you've got a line like I have here, which is a mixture of both like very mechanical, as you can see, like these notes here are all at the same, but then you've got like your variation. So I've got my accents a little bit higher, and then this one's a little bit higher than this. Just so I normally, when I program them in, I will manually put in a bit of variation, but it's always nice to have this little humanize tool. And if you just put it in subtly, it just adds those tiny little mistakes, I guess you could call them, that that are human. That's the humanize tool. MIDI echo basically adds like another delay. Bad example to add it to that. So I was complaining about delay, but it's not really a delay, it's an echo. But yeah, so you can sounds like something dropping on the floor. Anyway, so that is that. And then over here on, very lastly, I brought in a one of my favorite boom sounds. It's from Project Alpha, but I won't promote that here. Yeah, it's basically a sound which I'm using in the track here, not here, sorry, here, to accent the downbeats. So. Now, a cool thing I could do here is, firstly, you don't, You know, I'm not playing it fast, so I don't need any round robins or anything. So if you go out, you know, if you've got stuff lying around your house, or, you know, like, or you've got an old washing machine or something, just take a baseball bat to it and record the sound of it. Load it into battery, and then you can come in here and, you know, you can make it a bit more. You can come in, you know, you can fix it up, make it more drum-like. Put on. Put it on the drums. I don't like that. And if I wanted, I could make it. And so, while that's not, you know, radically different, I could put delay on it. You can hear now how that's more like drum-like. So you could go out and take any sound. You know, this is basically what I do when I make my own sounds, is I will take a baseball bat to something. Well, not a baseball bat, it could be anything. I'll take, you know, a stick to something. I'll record the sound of it. And then, like, battery is the perfect place, particularly if you're doing percussion, to bring in things like this. I think this sound, this boom here, was originally a skip. We had a skip at our house. I went out in the rain. You know, I put a microphone to it, and I hit it with a hammer. And, you know, with just adding a few little effects, you can turn it into something completely different, you know. So that's cool. So this is, I've probably messed up the track now, but. So that's Battery 4. That was quite an in-depth look at Battery 4. So let's move on now to Monark, which I want to look at next. I'll just play you a little section, this little section here, so you can hear how it fits into the track. And then I'll take it away. So. As I hope you could hear how just like it's a very subtle sound, this, but when you take, you know, when you take it out of the track, the track loses something. You know, it's hard to say what it is, but that's what we as composers are. We're sculptors of the invisible. We sculpt sound. So yeah, so let me move down to my reactor section. So these sounds, a lot of this track was based around the thought that I would be talking about Monark, which is a reactor synth, which I'm not a big fan of reactor, but we'll talk about that later. So these sounds here, as you can see, are WAV files, and this one here is MIDI. And the reason I did WAV files, I'll explain later, but basically you can't tempo sync the filters. You can't tempo sync the modulation in Monark. So I bounce things down to audio, and then I sync them up in audio, as you can see by using the wave markers here, just so they would be in time. But I'll show you the presets I used to make them in a second. So a few different sounds. So this first one sounds like this. And then the other one, this one here, is a nice little bass line. And the cool thing about these is, I think they, to me personally, I mean, I don't own any hardware synths. I've heard a lot of people, and I've been in a lot of discussions about hardware synths. But to me, these sound the closest to what hardware synths sound like to me. You know, someone who hasn't personally got, if you've got a hardware synth, you're probably going, that sounds nothing like a hardware synth. But there is enough kind of what I would describe as harmonic texture that's like synonymous with hardware synth. It's almost like the way it over distorts the sound that makes it sound analog to me. So let me unfreeze my reactor chain here. Reactor takes up a lot of CPU. So let's take a look at Monarch. Oh, I'll show you the last sound. The last sound I used is this. So this is what Monarch looks like. It's a cool looking thing, and as you could tell, it's based on, I think, the Mini Moog. I don't own one, so you know I'm probably be shot if I got that wrong. So it's a very kind of, for lack of a better term, simplistic look at a synth. So it's quite confusing when you first look at it, but I'll walk you through it. So you know, it's got a very cool sound to it. Let me turn off. Another thing is what you see here is what you get. There's no other pages. I mean, there's the settings page, which lets you change, you know, the curves and how, you know, if there's any leakage and stuff, and if it drifts. The drift, these features are basically make it sound more like an analog synth. You know, like the little faults of a hardware synth. You know, they're recreating. So yeah, everything you see here, this is all you get. A lot of people would see that as a bad thing, particularly nowadays when you've got so many options with digital synths. You know, you've got all these tempo syncs and it gets crazy. But every now and again, it's fun to take it back to something a bit more simple because you're forced to be more creative. As you heard here, I've got 3 different sounds, and I think they all sound quite different. And so yeah, it's funny how we all have access to the exact same dials, but we can all create something so drastically different. I also used this bit, before I forget, I used the same synth. This synth, which we're looking at right now, is this one. It's actually used in 3 different contexts. So I'm using it as basically as a pad almost. It's monophonic, by the way, so you can only play 1 note at a time. So I'm using it as like a pad there, and then I'm using it as a percussion doubling. I'm doubling the percussion with it to make the percussion sound more, for lack of a better term, cool, you know, more aggressive. I'll put that in the track. And then it goes back to being this melodic thing. So, you know, this patch in particular was quite flexible. So, put it back to a loud section. So let me, what's the best way to do this? So let's take a look at the actual presets that I made. So, Battlefield. So this one that we're listening to right now, I think is called Raw, but no, bass high over. Yeah, we're listening to an edited version of this one. I'm trying to find what this one down here was. I think it may be, oh, not ensembles. This is the main thing I hate about the presets thing is these presets here. You have to save the entire ensemble. So this is what it normally looks like. If I change something and I wanted to save the patch, I would have to, what would I have to do? I'd have to put it into edit mode, I believe. So if I change something, you know, whatever, and I wanted to save this, you would think you would just go to File, Save Preset, which you can do, which I've done, but it saves it to the file folder. But if you wanted to have it up here in the list, you have to put it into edit mode, I think, and then you have to save. Yeah, you end up having to save the so if you look down the bottom here, the append store insert. So if I turn that off, they disappear, which is the thing that confused me the most when I was trying to save this patch. And I deleted it once by accident, but luckily I remembered the basic shape of it. Yeah. So if you want to save it into the list, so say I wanted to save it into the FX bank or whatever, I'll save it in user for now. If I wanted to save, I actually prefer that anyway. So if I wanted to save that, you have to put it in edit mode first, which is this button here. Then you have to come down. If you want to just store it, like overwrite, if I wanted to overwrite what it is at the minute, the bass, high, overtone, aggressive, you just click store. But if you wanted to save it as like a different version, you just click append and it adds it in, you rename it, and then you have to click append again. So saved. And then that turns red, which means now I have to save the ensemble. Save. Then I can replace that. And now that's saved, and it should. That's if the whole system doesn't crash now, which it very may well do. Okay, there is. I don't know what that said, but now it's saved in there, which, in my opinion, is just too much effort to save a preset. Just let me click, because when I use Reactor, personally, I hate Reactor for this one feature. You know, the reason it's almost like it's like something being developed, and then before they put it into the standalone stage, they thought, fuck it, they can just have it in the editing stage. It just feels almost unfinished. I would prefer to have Monark, and Razor and the Finger. I'd much prefer to have all of these things in like this, like to have them as their standalone. They come like this. I click file, I click save preset, and it's in the list, just like a normal synth. You know, we're at this point now where every other synth except ones that come out and react to do this. So, you know, just even if you change the way presets are handled, so they're not saved in the ensemble, they're saved, they check in the preset folder, like, because you can go file, save preset, and open preset, but they're not in this drop down menu, you know, so you can't quickly go between patches by doing that. So I have no idea how that's supposed to be like Battlefield. Anyway, so let me just walk you through. So this is what it sounds like. No, in fact, first thing I was going to do is load the patch that this one down here, so I think is moan. Save changes to no. You see, look, all this hassle just to load. Yeah, so this sound down here, let me turn these off. So I had a filter, I had a distortion, a reverb, and a delay. So the sound, this is what Monarch sound, this is what this sound sounds like. And so, how did this get made? I'll show you in a second. So that was that sound, and then the bass note, this bass line here, I actually kind of cheated, because you see, Monarch doesn't have a built-in arpeggiator. So what I actually did was I used the MIDI version of, I used Live's one. So if is this loading? Yeah. So if I play this now and turn on the arpeggiator, I've now got like an arpeggiator. So I found this, you know, I find this much more appealing than using just the cutoff, the built-in modulation in this, particularly as it's not tempo sync. This is tempo sync, so I could use it as MIDI if I wanted to, but I think I just bounced it for space. Anyway, so let me show you a patch built from scratch. I'm a poet, I don't know it. So this is a knit sound. No, it isn't. This is. This is one thing I've noticed, that the glide never seems to work on the first note. So if I hold a note and then hold the next one, it doesn't work until I release the other one. However, if I was to push another key while the second note's held, it will change. So you can't hear this, but I'm going to push the first key and then I'm going to push the second key on and off, and you'll watch how it does nothing. Yep. But if I push the first key, hold the second key, and then take the first key off, and now take it off now. it changes. However, I know this is just being petty, but then on the third note, so I hold the first key, then I hold the second, nothing will happen. When I let go of the first, the second one will sound. But now the glide kicks in, the monophonic part kicks in, which means now I can play as fast as I want on any other key and it will glide. That irritates me to no end. I'm sure I'm doing something wrong, but yeah, that bugs me so much. So it means your first note, you have to make sure to release the first note. Yeah, there's no way to change that. Yeah, so as you can hear, this is very old school, you know, like Nintendo. Yeah, it's just a basic synth. So let's look at the way the flow goes. So up here you've got the octave. So let's say we're making a bass sound. So we'll set it octave 0. So at the minute, all we've got coming through is so the mix. Like when you first look at the page, if you're making a sound, the first place your eyes want to go is here. This is the mixer. These are the sounds that are on. So if this dial's on, now you can see there's nothing on. So this dial here means oscillator 1. This dial here is oscillator 2's volume and on switch. And this is oscillator 3's volume and on switch. But this is where things get a little bit confusing. Oscillator 3 is also the modulation, as you can see here. So normally you would have oscillator 3 switched off unless you're doing some crazy stuff, because this is controlling the modulation. So the amount that this is doing is controlling whatever's being controlled by the modulator. Then you've got the range. So the further to the left it is, the lower. So that's basically a low frequency oscillator at the minute. Or you can think of it as octaves. Then you change the waveform shape here. So if you're making a bass sound, you normally want to have one sound, you know, being a sine wave, or by the looks of this, a triangle wave, but this will do. Again, if I turn the modulator on, this is the pitch. So if I was to move up the mod wheel, that's now this the pitch of this note now, because I've turned the mod on, which only applies to the first one, the first and second. When I push the mod wheel up, it's now being controlled, the pitch, by this speed. And this is where you can get kind of cool with it, because the low is basically a low frequency oscillator. The shape of this wave because that's a low frequency oscillator, it sounds like it's supposed to. But when you start getting crazy, when you start turning these turning into like actual speeds, you start getting into like FM synthesis, where it starts modulating. It starts like almost feeding back on itself. Like ring modulation. There's a cool sound. I quite like that. That's kind of cool. There's volume up here, by the way. We'll just keep this low for now in case I mess anything up. But I'll turn the modulation down. And if I turn the mod wheel up, that weird sound comes in. You can hear the difference there. Okay, so now let's turn on oscillator 2. As you can hear, again, being affected by this sound. So maybe I could turn this into maybe not that sound. I like that. Okay, so now we're at a point where the modulation does something cool. It basically makes it really dirty. I'll turn the glide down. So let's move into the mixer stage. If I was to turn this on, by the way, it would become a third oscillator. But as it's things get a bit crazy when you do that, so I'm going to turn that off for now. You can change the modulation to noise, which if you're making sound effects, you know that's a cool thing to do. So I'll turn the modulation like down again. So now we're let's look at the filter stage. So the cutoff, filter, and resonance. Not sure what it stands for. I should do, but I don't. I'll play. If I turn this, it's got a very analog type sound filter. If I turn the resonance right up, turn this up a bit. Let me find a stage in this where it's loud. There we go. Not sure what the contour's doing there, but what you can do is modulate the cutoff here with this with the modulation. So that's going to go crazy because at the minute it's going really fast. But back in the day, you would have had to have just stuck with this unless you had some outboard like distortion pedals and stuff. But you don't really have to worry about that so much here because in the world of digital, you know, I can add like distortion stuff. So when I'm building a patch, I don't think this is the final sound. I think this is the best starting point. So let's move into like where things get really dirty. So now we've got an overload button, which overloads the filter. This is the difference between the sound. You hear how many harmonics this just adds on to the top. I love it. And then you can feedback, which basically feeds the sound back into itself. Again, it's very dirty sounding. And then the filter envelope, I'm just going to turn the feedback down. Now you see, I don't quite understand this bit, so someone can tell me what I'm doing wrong here. But I get the feeling that the filter there should open and then close after. Yeah, my brain is telling me that when a filter envelope's used like this, what should happen now is this cutoff should take 1 millisecond and then take 5 seconds to go down. So like that. That's what that shape should do, but it's not doing that because it doesn't like me very much. someone can explain to me what I'm doing wrong here. Yeah. So I'm not sure why that doesn't work the way I thought it would, but it doesn't. So then we've got the attack, decay, sustain, release of the amp at the bottom here. If I turn this down, it should. Saviour. So if I turn the arpeggiator on now, it's a nice shot. And what would be cool if I could move this. I love the sound of an overloading filter. Now you see, you can't do that here, but now I'll talk about. Oh yeah, and you can add noise, by the way. But the noise goes through the filter. But yeah, the feedback is one of my favorite features. It overloads the crap out of the sound. The B setting particularly. Now, one of the cool features, I'm using Ableton Live 9 here. Firstly, being able to find plugins is awesome. I just push Apple F and I type in what I want. So I want an LFO, and they've got this this Max for Live LFO instrument. So if I bring this in, one of the cool features, and if any of you use Ableton Live, if you have a plugin or whatever, and you want to change the you want to change a parameter of it and it's not in the automation window, or even if you've got Ableton Live 9 and you want to use is that going to load or are we going to crash? We'll see. You want to load a parameter. This is how you do it. So you click on this little triangle here. Oh, you don't right click on it like that. So you click on this little arrow and you click configure, and I want to move this cutoff, and as you can see now, cutoff has become an automatable parameter. Now the cool thing about Ableton Live here is this LFO, I'm sure other ones have got the same, is if I click map, yep, it'll flash, and then I click on cutoff. So now this is being controlled. It's almost like I've put another LFO into the synth. So now I'm controlling the LFO. So I don't want the depth to go crazy like that. If I sync this up and I'll put it on like, I don't know. The problem with sync is I need to be playing the actual I need to be playing the sequence in the background for it to work, so I'm just going to put it on frequency for now. The depth, the phase is, you know, if you want it to start like, and then I want to offset it so it goes all the way to 0. And they've got this cool little jitter thing which adds like a bit of randomization to it. Makes it feel more like a hand, but I normally have it on the down. And then I'll I'll take this off. And because the decay, I'll put the sustain back up to. But I don't want that to be quite so. And now, you know, maybe I want a distortion on it, you know, make it even more dirty. For some reason the graphics haven't loaded into the Facturator today, but and then have an auto filter, and then whack it in a room. I'll put that at the end. And then add some delay. And you can hear how you can get really crazy. And this is kind of how I made this sound down at the bottom here. And then like instantly, you know, you've got this big aggressive sound. I probably can't play the track now because if I was to play the track back now, all these parts would now be I could set it so that every 2 bars that opens. Okay, we're back. We did have a crash there, but that's not Komplete 9. That's my well, it's not mine. It's Ableton Live 9. It's still new, and Ableton is notorious for having buggy releases. Anyway, so I put this patch here back to normal, so you didn't get to experience what it felt like in the track, which was a glorious event, I must admit. But you know, it's for my ears only. You'll have to. There's nothing you can do. Anyway, that's gone. It's gone for good. Didn't even get to save it. But so now we're back to how it used to sound, which is all cool. So yeah, I've covered Monark here. I'll just talk about how I used it in context of the track. So at the beginning here, by the way, if it crashes again, now it's crashed once. It's like a snowball effect. When Ableton Live crashes once, the media server starts messing things up. So anyway, so how did this relate to the track? So the synths at the beginning, I start with the kind of siren sound, which is, and I wanted to kind of create this feeling of tension. When I actually wrote this, I worked to the new Metal Gear Solid 5 trailer. You know, I'm a big Metal Gear fan. That's my inspiration. So when I have to write a track, this is like a little tip, by the way. If ever you have to write a track without picture and you're a reactive composer, there's 2 types of composers. There's composers who write like from their head, you know, they just feel inspired and they can write music. And then there's other reactive composers who like very viscerally react to something, and that turn, you can convert what you feel into music. So some people could just like write music out of nowhere, which I commend. I can do that occasionally, but I have to be in the right mood to do that. So I'm what you call a reactive composer. So when I'm composing, I will download a picture, that represents what I want to achieve with the music, or I'll get a trailer. And I'm not scoring to the trailer. It's just that I have that playing while I'm scoring, and it makes me. It keeps the continuity of the feeling of the music going. So I was scoring to the new Metal Gear trailer. It's very dark and aggressive. So that just helped me, stay the course with this track. So I started off with this synth, as you heard earlier. And it's got a very menacing kind of sound, and then slowly, well, not slowly, I bring in those big hits in Battery, layered with some ADO Epic Taiko and some and some Drums of War 1. So it sounds like this. Then I bring in Action Strings, which is Action Strings is in Komplete 9 Ultimate, I think. But I already had it, so that's one of the reasons, by the way, I upgraded to Komplete 9, like the standard version. I didn't get the Ultimate because of a lot of the things in the Ultimate that I would need, I've already bought separately. Things like Damage, Action Strings, I bought these already separately, so I didn't feel the need to upgrade for that. The only ones I wanted from this new Komplete were Battery 4 and Monarch. And if I'd have bought them separately, it'd have cost $200, whereas the upgrade was $149 with a £30 voucher. So the deal was clear. Anyway, so yeah, I bring in some Action Strings, and I keep this menacing thing. And as you can see, I fade in this sub bass to come in with the first hits. So it sounds like this. I'll play it from the beginning so the strings come in as well. And then I kind of drop it out here because I wanted to accent the monster brass, which is here. And then I bring it back in for this little section here. And the bass line actually drops out as well, and that comes back in at the theme just to give the theme a little bit more weight when it hits. You see, and these two elements are like the underpinning of the whole track, because like when you solo them, you hear how dark and menacing they sound. I'll just sew them together. They create like this bass, which the whole track's built on. And like even though it's doing something simple, like let me just solo out like the strings and the this is what's being played on top of them, and by themselves they don't sound dark and sinister. But when you bring in those dark synthy elements, everything gets a little bit more intense. So then we got this section here, and I'll use this part to talk about the piano in a second. The piano's being doubled on this line here, but yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. And again, I bring in the dark underpinning section again, and this is one of the this is where the synth and Battery are both working together, because Battery's playing this. and the synth's playing this. Yeah, so if I just play this section, this little section here, this is just Monark battery and the giant piano, and you can feel how much of the sound this fills out by itself. You know, that could almost be a cue in itself. And if I was writing a video game score, this would be a good few stems to cut out, because they do. You know, if you ever write game scores, a lot of your tracks have to be they have to layer with each other. So I would probably have this stem like this. Let me play it from here. And then like when you wanted things to get more intense, you know, like say the player's doing something, you could fade in like the brass, for example. So let me find this on my, okay. So like you could fade in the brass. Okay, what I'm going to do now is, just because I'm in that gaming mode right now. So what I'm going to do is, strings? Okay, yes, I'm gonna make it so that the strings and brass fade in like it was. We bring in the percussion as well. Why not? Brass, strings. Sorry, I'm messy. I've got an M Audio Project Mix IO, so let me fade these in now. If you're doing a game score, so this is a bit off topic of the Komplete, but if you're into video game scoring, this is a good example of the kind of things you'll be doing. So let's say I've got the synth part. Pull these down. So this. So let's say, again, if it was a video game score, so I've got this running in the background, you know, there's just this pulse. That isn't playing, so I need to just pull it in a bit. And then what I'm going to slowly do is just imagine like different situations as I bring things in. So things get more intense, you know. I'm doing a piss poor job right now. So yeah, you could bring in layers like that over the top of it to then things get a little bit more intense. I'm not sure why I did that, but yeah, I wanted to show you that if you stem out your tracks, you can layer them together. Anyway, random little offshoot there. So lastly, sorry, I'll stop saying sorry, was the piano. So in the track, let me just layer these back up. In the track, I've got this piano part. Which is courtesy of, this is new to Komplete 9, the Giant, which as you can see is a enormous piano. Now a lot of people are saying, no, you can't use this for like soft pieces and stuff. And I beg to differ. So the piece I'm playing here in the track sounds like this. So it's just underpinning that line, which is, let me play this on my keyboard. So it's like, what is it? And it's being delayed, which is just an effect, but I'll turn that off. So as you can see, this is your UI. It's one of Native Instruments' needlessly large UIs where they have a huge picture. These dials could be put into a nice little space. Then I could have at least 4 on screen at once. But anyway, so on screen, you get a tone, which is basically, like I showed you in battery, it's basically a velocity curve. An XSL, which changes the sound to make it sound larger. Or I say louder. I imagine that's compression of some sorts. Sorry, play the wrong key. So, then you've got the anatomy, so you can change. You can actually change the velocity curve, overtones, and this is where I like this. So this is what I use. You know, it goes. Oh, you know, I'm playing it loud, and that's one thing this is good at, which a lot of people also commented on. It's very punchy. Right, let me just show you this as well. It's very punchy, and it's also got the strongest low end I've ever heard in a piano. Where is it? Such a strong low end. Anyway, yeah, so I used it because it's very punchy and, you know, up in your face. But one thing you can do is dynamic range. So the more dynamic range, basically the like the velocity curve, it becomes like you have to push harder to make it go hard. And when you go soft, this is awesome. This dial here, so I'm holding the sustain pedal. As you can hear, it's a nice soft sound. Let me change the tone to be soft as well. I'll turn it up as well because it's going to be very soft. Make this a little bit harder. But one of the cool things, this resonance things, is it basically, I imagine they recorded the sounds of the other strings when you push a key. Because when you push a key, one string doesn't vibrate by itself. It slightly vibrates the others. So if you listen to I've turned this way up, so it may be a bit too loud. But when I play softly now, you'll hear these resonant tones come over the top. I'm playing as soft as I can there just to make it. And then you've also got overtones. So as you can see, you can do that soft really nicely. And so this is actually one of my go-to ones now, because there's pianos that do clean very well. Ones that come to mind are like the piano in blue. That does clean and really, it's a beautiful tone in your face. And you can put it in the room and stuff and it sounds great. And then you've got ones like the emotional piano, which I think is Sound Irons now, or ADR, I can't remember, which sounds amazing when you play it soft. It's very otherworldly. This, like if you play it hard, it's very up in your face. Oh, by the way, this has got a reverb turned on, so it's very dry. You can do clean with it. Well, but the preset, the concert hall, the ones it comes with, they're all convolution. And as you heard earlier, when you play soft, when you play, I'm not sure what I was playing there, but the convolution reverb really puts it in a space. So this can do both, the really punchy in your face and the soft. And the soft is really helped out by these dials here, the overtones and the resonances. They add like a certain kind of flavor to it. It's also got the stereo image, so I can make it wider or more mono. And then you can throw in the sounds of the hammer, then the sounds of the damper, pushing out the foot, sound of the pedal, sound of the string. That pedal's so loud. Yeah, so you can add in all the extra little sounds. So you can make this as real, as fake, as in your face, or as far back. And, all the features here, particularly like the ones I hope that other libraries take as a challenge and start trying to do themselves, is the overtones and the resonances. Because it adds such a tone to it. Anyway, so that's the Giant. And I think this may crash because, like I said, live's in a weird mode. So let's change it to the cinematic. So the cinematic version, this is where you get like your effects, which are all really cool. So if I turn this off, you can see that there's a convolution resonance on it, and there's also a space. So let's listen to just the overtones. As you can hear, they're very kind of in your face, so you'd probably want to play sparsely. Layer them in with the noise effects. So just the resonances. Turn around. I'm not sure how that song goes, but every now and then I get a little bit low. That one. That's what that sounds like. Release. So this is just the releases. Plucked is way too much reverb everywhere. So yeah, I'm not particularly like the cinematic things. The noises I can see as cinematic. The overtones, not so much. Maybe if you layer the overtones and resonances together. But when it says cinematic, it doesn't really sound cinematic in the sound of in the way that you would imagine like a cinematic library to be. You know, like you wouldn't use this as a piano in cinematic music. You would use the other piano to be a piano. This is like effects and stuff. But there's there's companies out there that sell, like for example, the Plucked and the actual piano as separate libraries, whereas these are together. So I mean, if you're looking to get a piano, I think it's maybe €100, maybe €70. I'm not sure. But if you've already got a version of Komplete, the upgrade from Komplete, like set up, I had Komplete 7. I never bothered with 8. The upgrade for me from Komplete 7 to Komplete 9 was €150. And with that, you also get a €30 discount voucher. So if you add that on, that was €120. So I've already got, for €20 more than buying one of these libraries separately, I'm getting everything. I'm getting battery, I'm getting Monark, I'm getting the piano, I'm getting the thingamajigs, the solid state stuff. This one also had session strings. I didn't use that because I've already got session strings, so and I haven't used it for a while, so I didn't use it in this track. I didn't think to, but if you're thinking about going between the Ultimate and this, like on Native Instruments website, there's a good comparison between the two. The Ultimate, if you don't have anything and you're looking to get into composing, I would 100% seriously recommend. And I bought this with my money, so I'm not like, I'm not being paid to say how much I like this, like some people claim I am. If you're getting started, and you have nothing and you want to know what to buy first to start composing, just buy a version of Komplete. It doesn't really matter which one you go for if you're starting out, like either the basic or the Ultimate, because you're going to have more than enough sounds to last you at least, for ages. So Contact by itself comes with like 40 gigabytes of sounds, and they're like orchestral strings, they're drums, they're keyboards, they're ethnic winds, they're choir, that you've got and that's just Contact, and that's one instrument that comes in Komplete. Then you've got Battery 4, which has got all those, which I showed today. It's got all those it's got loads of different presets, which I didn't actually show, but there's hundreds of kits. Let me close this. In Battery itself, let me find it. I use like personally when I use things, I tend to use my own sounds. I mean, other than orchestral sounds, because I can't make my own. So like here, I'm making my own drums. As you can see, like they've got all these different drum kits. You could load in. I don't know. What was a good one? The pendulum kit. You just double click it and I need to play. you know, so, you know, with battery, you get all these drum kits, you get all those features. Then you've got the compressors, which I'll show you now. So let me turn off the reverb up here. I'll come over here and do it. So let's put in a just program a little beat. This has got to be the longest video known to man, but thanks for sticking with me. No, I need it on 8ths. 16ths rather. I need this to be faster. Boom. Okay, we'll just go with that for now. Put that there. Now I'm not sure how these get programmed, but okay, it doesn't look like it wants to play more than one at a time, so there must be a setting on. Yeah. Need something here. Okay, so nice little drum loop. It's not the best thing. The cool thing though is I can like pitch up. That's dubstep, isn't it? I'm joking. That's the cool thing about having it set up in octaves, because you can do one drum pattern and then just control. So let me, this is one of the coolest features in Live, like I mentioned earlier, just being able to type solid. There we go. So let's look at the compressor. We've put it on the drums. So if we bypass this, instantly it's punchier. But you know, we'll look at some presets just for fun. Now, the solid bus compressor is clearly influenced by the solid state. So I imagine it's like an unofficial emulation. I'm not sure if they claim it to be so. But everybody seems to be doing that at the minute. I think, yeah, Ableton Live's got their own one, which I think this is solid state, but you could see it's like the same kind of settings. It's even got the 1030, and then where's the release? 1.6, but this one goes up to 1.2, and then auto. This one has more ratios because it's got the in-betweens. It's got 3, 1. It's got more ratios than this has, but everybody's ripping off the solid state compressors at the minute. So one feature that this has, no, they both have it. Okay, I was going to say this one has a dry wet, which means for those of you who like to sidechain, do sidechain compression on your drums, which is where you basically over compress the signal and then mix that into a dry signal. But I just saw that you could do that here. So this is the dry signal with the makeup gain, I think. And you put them together like that. So, you know, this is punchy, but let's, is there like a nit? So the makeup gain will take it down to 0. For those of you who don't know what compression is, it basically narrows the dynamic range, so it makes things more stable. So for drums, we want to let through some of the transients. So what we'll do is we'll set the attack maybe they had it at 30. Okay, we'll have it at 10, and then the ratio quite heavy, and we'll have like a really quick release. And then we'll bring the threshold so it's pumping it quite hard. If you listen to the initial hit of the drum, you'll hear what the attack's doing. The further up I put it, the more of the actual click of the hit you get. And it gets more kind of that kind of sound. I mean, if I really ratio and then mix in some dry signal, that's the sound of sidechain compression right there. You see how this sounds quite flat? And then when I bring it in, it gets a little bit more lively, but we'll take all the dry signal out. So as you can hear, we've by compressing it, I don't want it to be. I want it to be more like that. So if I turn this off now, and when I turn this on, just turn that off so it doesn't keep going. Pause syncing. Yeah, so if I bypass it, you'll hear that the compressed signal is a lot lower, and then we just whack up the makeup gain to compensate. Turn it off. You can hear how it sounds a lot more lively, you know? So now we'll take out the, well, not take it out. We'll look at the dynamics. I'm not quite sure how the dynamics work. I never use these personally, but we'll have a look. We'll fiddle and see what happens. So I've turned the compressor off for now. Let's punchy drums. It's definitely making it punchy. So let's see what is it doing? Parallel drums, so it's parallel compression. And we got vocal kick. So what it's doing is gating. Okay. So let's Okay. So I'm like really compressing it here. Yeah, that to me sounds like it's just a compressor and a gate mixed together. I'm sorry that I don't know very well what that does yet. I'll learn. I'm learning. Okay, and then the EQ. So I'll put the compressor on. So it introduces a lot of high hissing type frequencies, so we'll look for that. Just pull those down a dB. Pull that down a little dB. there you go, instant drum. But yeah, you could take that and run it. Let me try running just those settings through. So yeah, these are the, again, I apologize for not knowing really what the dynamics do. It sounds like just a compressor and a gate, but next to each other. And I'm pretty sure you could switch between the two. Yeah, the gate and an expander. Expander does the opposite to a gate. Pushes the sound up or wider. Anyway, that may be wrong. That's just my assumption. So yeah, these used to be, I think, part of Guitar Rig 5. Like as inserts, but they've released them as standalone, which is awesome because I prefer just putting one standalone thing on as opposed to, a whole bunch of different sounds. So yeah, these are cool, particularly the solid bus compressor. This is my favorite. I didn't actually know until just now that it had the sidechain compression because I didn't look hard enough, I imagine. So I'd been using the glue compressor in Ableton Live. But if they are essentially the exact same thing. Let me try and imitate the settings. Release, we'll put that on. No, ratio, sorry, we'll put that on 4. Then we'll put the release down to 0.1. And then we'll go between the two. My makeup gain is 5.4. We're just comparing the takes on it. And the threshold is -9. Yep. Okay, so I'll put it back to what it was. Now, one thing I've noticed, I'm pretty sure I got these settings exactly the same, right? 5.4, 5.4, 9. I need to bring this down a little bit. What is it on? 9.0, come on. 9.02, come on, give me that. 9.2, okay. So they're on the exact same sound. And it sounded to me like the Ableton Live compressor brings out more highs. They're quite the same. They're quite similar. How about if we put the threshold all the way down to... threshold all the way down. I'm not sure which is better. But they do the same thing. And I think this one... as it's got the extra ratios, will probably get more use from me now. Whereas another thing that's cool is the range. Has this one got a range? I don't think so. So you can narrow the range that's being compressed. You can also feed it in so that just the low EQ, just the lows are being compressed. So as you can hear now, only this signal. So, a few features that could be added, but, I'm not complaining. They sound great in their own right. So yeah, that's my very short and brief overview of the new features, or the new products in Komplete 9. I hope you've enjoyed this video. There was a lot to cover, so if you're still with me, thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask them down below. There's potential for me to do other videos of the other products in the line, but as not all of them are new to Komplete, because they came out in Komplete 8 or Komplete 7. I didn't bother with this one. I just wanted to go for the ones that are new to Complete 9 in the standard edition. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this. And again, thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, just ask them in the comments, and I will try and answer them if I can. I do read all the comments, so if you leave a comment and I don't respond to it, I'm not being an arsehole. It's either I don't have an answer for you, or it's not a question. Yeah, so cheers for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Cheers.